What's up guys, Boost Auto here. Today we're going to be showing you how to install our rear passive entry upgrade kit. This procedure is going to be outlined for 2019 to 2022 Chevy and GMC 1500 trucks, as well as 2020 to 2023 Chevy and GMC 2500 and 3500 trucks. Now those are going to be all non-refresh trucks. With that said, let's get into it. Introducing our rear door handle passive entry upgrade from Boost Auto. Most vehicles aren't equipped with passive entry in the rear. This is a critical feature to have when your hands are full and you don't have direct access to your keys. That's why we've come out with a kit to add this functionality to your vehicle. Our rear passive entry kit comes with all new rear door handles specifically designed for your truck with the passive entry button. So if you're looking to add some style to your truck, the Ion Series handles are the perfect option. Let's get into it. Jumping right into the install here, before we disconnect our battery, we're going to want to make sure to roll both our front seats all the way forward so we can get access to this B-pillar trim later. We're also going to want to make sure that our rear door windows are rolled all the way up. Now that our seats are all the way forward and our windows are rolled up, we can proceed with disconnecting the negative terminal on our primary battery. If you have a secondary battery, disconnect that as well. Starting over here on the driver's side rear door, we're going to remove the door panel. So we're going to remove this trim panel right here just in front of the door grab. So we're going to start on this end and just use a trim tool to start prying out from that end. We'll work all our way over to this end as there is a latch there. Now we're going to go ahead and remove this little trim piece just behind the handle. So if you just get a corner with a pick or a little screwdriver, we can pry that up and remove it. Now there's a couple 7mm bolts we got to remove. The first one is going to be just behind that trim panel. The other two are going to be behind that first trim panel we removed. Then there's one last 7mm bolt just at the bottom of the panel here. Now with all the hardware removed, the panel is only held on by trim clips. So there's a little lip you can get on the inside edge here and just start prying back on the panel. And you're just going to want to work your way around up to the top. Once we get all those disengaged up to the top, we can pull up on the panel, make sure we clear that lock rod. Now we're going to disconnect the interior handle cable here. So there's a little tab on the top of the cable that we're going to press down, and then we can pull it away from the handle. And then this cable is going to have a little ball at the end that we can disengage. Now there's an electrical connector we have to disconnect. So if you need a little more room, you can delatch some of this felt on the back side of the panel here. So on this electrical connector, there's going to be a little white tab we need to pull down, and then behind that white tab is another tab we're going to want to push in, and then the connector can come unplugged. Now we're going to be left with this little retainer, so we're just going to pry that off the panel there. Okay, now with the door panel removed, we're going to want to remove our inner door liner as well as our speaker here to gain further access to the inside of the door. So we can start here with our door liner. We can just kind of carefully peel it back, being careful that we don't rip the door liner. Once we get that peeled all the way back, you can just poke your cable through the hole in the liner, and then we could set that aside. Now for the speaker here, there's just one 7mm bolt here. With that bolt removed, we can peel our speaker back. Now if it's stuck on there, you can just take a flat blade or a trim tool and kind of pry the speaker away from the door. It'll pop out like so, and then we can press down underneath and disconnect the connector. Again, we're going to have a retaining clip, peel that off. Now we can remove the speaker. Now we're going to move on to removing the exterior handle. So on the outside edge of the door here, we got this little rubber grommet we're going to have to remove. And then there's going to be a T25 Torx bolt underneath that. So a little more in depth on removing the handle. That T25 Torx bolt does not actually come out What I'm gonna do here is I'm just gonna hold the handle open, and then I'm gonna slowly loosen that Torx bolt until the handle pops out, and then we can continue removing it. And then once the rear of the handle pops out like that, stop loosening it. You don't need to go any further. So now that we got that rear part of the handle out of the door, as for the front, we're just gonna pull it towards the rear and away from the door, and it should latch out like that. Now for our bezel here, we're just gonna push that to the front of the door, and then we can start gently pulling it out. So now it's gonna be time to install our new upgraded handle. So the first thing we're gonna do is we're gonna take our handle bezel from our new handle, and we're gonna take the gasket from the old handle bezel and just transfer it over to our new handle bezel. Now we can take our new handle bezel and we're gonna feed it in till it snaps into place, and then you're just gonna take it and push it towards the back side of the door, and that will latch it all the way in. Now you can see there's a little latch on the gasket, so we're just gonna take that and engage it into the surface of the door. Okay, this step here is very important. Before we install the physical handle itself, there's a metal tab right here, and we need to make sure that this metal tab is flush with the plastic here before installing that handle. So to move that metal tab, we're gonna get back on that T25 Torx bolt and just loosen it up a little more till that tab is flush with the plastic here. Now that we got our metal tab where it needs to be, we can move on to installing the actual handle. So I'm gonna take the electrical connector and feed it through this front hole, and then we can latch the front of the handle in. So you're gonna push it in like that, and then push it towards the front of the door. Now we can feed the rear part in like so. Once that rear part is fed into the door, I'm just gonna use a little bit of pressure on the front of the door handle. You're gonna see the handle is gonna snap back into place, and we're just gonna keep tightening this bolt until it's snug. Now we're just gonna pop this grommet back into place. Before wiring the door handles, there's a couple interior trim pieces we're gonna have to remove. So starting at the rear here, we're gonna remove our rear sill plate. So this you can just pry up on, and that comes right out.
Now you can peel back the weather stripping on the rear door so we can gain access to the B-pillar.
Moving on to some of the trim accessible from the front door, we're first gonna have to remove this little seat track cover here, as it is above the sill plate. So we can just pry up on that, pops right out. With that seat track cover removed, we can now pry up on our sill plate here. So towards the front of our sill plate here, we're just gonna grab behind it and just pull to the rear of the vehicle. That'll pop out. Just like the rear, once we get the sill plate removed, we're gonna peel back the weather stripping around our B-pillar here. Now we're gonna be removing our upper and lower B-pillar trim pieces. Now for the upper trim panel, there's a couple of covers here that are hiding some bolts. But for this top cover here, we're gonna wanna pry back on this left side here that is closest to the rear of the vehicle. Lastly, we're gonna remove this trim cover here around the seat belt.
Now remove the 3 bolts holding in the B-pillar.
Once our hardware is removed, we can just pull back on the panel.
Now we can remove the lower B-pillar trim panel. The panel is just held in by trim clips, so once those are all undone, you can pop out the seatbelt trim cover and lift the whole panel up over the seatbelt. Then give yourself a little slack on the belt and set it aside.
All right guys, now we're gonna move on to wiring the passive entry handle. So we're gonna grab one of the harnesses included in our kit, and we recommend adding a little bit of dielectric grease to this connector. Once you got that done, we can go ahead and plug it in. Once it plugs in, just engage the red latch there. And then we're gonna be routing this through the inside of the door. So now we're gonna have to take our harness and loop it around the back side of this window track. So the harness is gonna start on this inside door surface and it's gonna end on this surface here. We're gonna do that by using adhesive clips. We're first gonna place one just after the connector on this front surface of the door. The next one we're gonna place is gonna be behind the window track on this outside surface, and then we will place one last one on this surface of the door from the inside here. Before we place any adhesive clips, we're gonna wanna make sure to clean the surface that we're gonna be sticking to. The first clip I'm gonna place is gonna be just under the handle mechanism, right about here. So I like to take the connector and feed it under this piece of the handle mechanism, and then we can clip the harness into the adhesive clip there. Now we're gonna place a clip on the back surface of the door behind the window track, just below the door latch. The last clip we're gonna place is gonna be on the other side of the door, right about there. Now we're gonna wrap the harness around the window track. We're gonna pull most of our slack through from around the window track, and we can clip that harness into those adhesive clips that we placed.
We can now secure the passive entry harness to the factory harness running through the door.
Now the harness kind of takes this path here and leads up to the door jamb boot, so we want to follow that as closely as we can. So now that we got our harness to the front of this door access here, we're just gonna pass it over on the back side, just underneath the window regulator motor, and we can pull it out of the speaker hole. Now that we got our wires to our speaker hole, we're gonna move on to disconnecting our door jamb boot and connector. So just grab a flathead and come to the top of the boot here, press down on the top. You can delatch that connector. Now with the boot out of place, there's gonna be a white tab at the top of the connector we're gonna have to pull out. With that pulled out, we can depress the latch underneath it, and then the connector will unplug. Now on the other side of the boot, I'm just gonna start folding this boot into the door, and then I'm gonna push the entire thing into the door, and we're gonna pull it out of the speaker hole. So now to get a little more slack on our door jamb boot out of the speaker hole, we are gonna undo this grommet from the door, and then this clip and this clip we can push back into the door, and we should be able to pull this out of the speaker hole a lot more. Now with more access to our door jamb boot, on the back side of it here we have this plastic piece, and the plastic piece has a cap that we're gonna have to take off, so we're first gonna get this tape off of there. With that tape off, now we can just pop the cap free. Now we're gonna tape our harness to a straightened out metal piece. Now we're gonna begin fishing our straightened out metal piece through the boot. So we're gonna start on the end with this plastic insert, and we're first gonna insert it through that plastic insert and then start going through the boot itself.
Now you can pull the remaining slack through the boot.
Then I'm gonna take that cap that we removed and pop that back on.
Then resecure the cover with tape. Finish securing the passive entry harness to this section of the factory harness.
With our harness still taped to a straightened out metal piece, we're now gonna take it and bring it in the speaker hole and then out the hole in the door. Now on the back side of our B-pillar, we can grab our straightened out metal piece and guide it through with the harness. Now we can start feeding our boot back into place. So we can bring it back through the speaker hole here, and we're gonna fasten this grommet back into place. that plastic retaining piece on the main door harness and clip that back into place. Now, while pulling the slack on our passive entry harness on the back side of the B-pillar, we can continue fishing our door jamb boot and connector through the hole in the door there. We're gonna pull that all the way through till we get the back side of our boot there. Then we can fasten that back into place. Now we're gonna wanna continue taking up our access slack on our passive entry harness. Then we can plug our door connector back into place. Make sure to re-engage that white tab there. As for the boot, the bottom part latches in and then the top part clips in. Just be careful that you don't pinch our passive entry harness there. With our door jamb boot back into place, we can start running our harness towards the front of the vehicle. So on the back side of the B-pillar here, I'm first gonna take the straightened out metal piece and go behind this little metal structure here and bring the harness out near the seatbelt retractor.
With our harness at the bottom of the B-pillar, we can start to follow the factory harness up toward the front of the vehicle. Then once you get up front to this plastic piece, you can use the straightened out metal piece to feed the harness underneath it. Make sure you secure the harness as you go to keep it away from the seatbelt retractor and any other moving components.
Now we can untape our harness from our straightened out metal piece, and we are going to be tapping at the keyless entry control module, which is just under the driver's side dash here. But first we're going to need to repeat all the same steps on the passenger side and then pass our harness over to the driver's side. Now that we've got our driver's side and passenger side harnesses over to the driver's side footwell here, we're going to be working with the two connectors here on this keyless entry control module. That's located underneath the driver's side dash just to the left of the BCM here. The first connector we're going to be working with is this brown connector here, which is closest to the front of the vehicle. To unplug it, we're first going to delatch the little red tab. Then we can depress the tab underneath the red tab and pull the connector out. Looking at the back side of the connector with the red tab at the top, we're going to be working with the wire in pin 14. Pin 14 is going to be on the bottom row, 4 slots to the right. So this wire right here. Before we add a T-tap to that wire, we're going to cut back some of the tape on the harness here just to give us a little more room. Now we can add a T-tap to the wire in pin 14. Now we're going to take the black wire from both the driver's side and passenger side harness and we're going to strip both ends. Now we're going to twist the wire ends together and combine them into one single disconnect. Now we can plug the disconnect we just crimped on into our T-tap that we placed on pin 14. Now we can plug our brown connector here back in, push it up till it clicks, and then re-engage that red locking tab. Now we're going to move on to working with the gray connector here, and that is just behind that brown connector that we were just working with. So this connector is closest to the rear of the vehicle. Pull that red tab down, depress the tab underneath it, and then pull the connector out. Again, before we place a T-tap, we're going to cut a little bit of this tape back to give us some more room. So again, looking from the back side of the connector with the red tab facing up, we're going to be working with the wire in pin 11. Pin 11 is on the bottom row, first slot all the way on the left. So this wire right here. Now we're gonna add a T-tap to that wire in pin 11. Now that we've got a T-tap on the wire in pin 11, we're next gonna add a T-tap to pin 12. So again, with the connector tab facing up, pin 12 is gonna be on the bottom row, one slot to the right. So that is gonna be the wire just to the right of pin 11. We go ahead and place a T-tap on that wire. Now we can grab the red wire from the passenger side and strip the end. Now we can crimp on a single disconnect. Now we're gonna grab the red wire from the driver's side and do the same. We're gonna strip the end, then we can crimp on a single disconnect. Now with our passenger side red wire, we're gonna plug that into the T-tap that we placed on pin 11. Then with our driver's side red wire, we're gonna place that into the T-tap that was placed on pin 12. Then we can take our connector and plug it back in. Push it up till it clicks, and again, re-engage that red tab. Now that we have our wires tapped, just be sure to take any excess slack that you have and tie it up away from the pedals or any other moving components. Now for reassembly, we're going to start by resituating our B-pillar trim here. So we're going to start with the lower trim panel. Now for the upper trim panel, we're going to take that part of the seat belt and feed it back through along with the trim piece there. And then we can line this up and clip that into place, and we can refasten our hardware. First we can refasten this 7mm at the top. Then we can get the two 10mm on the grab handle here. Now we can start resecuring some of our covers. This top one here has a latch that faces the front of the vehicle. So we're gonna latch that end in first and clip in the other side. Now for the covers on the grab handle. And we can resecure this center cover here for the seat belt. Lastly, we got this little cover at the bottom here. You just pop that back into place. At the front of the vehicle here, we can resecure the weather stripping around the B-pillar. Now we can take our sill plate here, and we're first gonna feed the front in, and then clip the front end in, and then we can re-engage the bottom there. Now for the seat track cover, you can get this into place and then just push down on it. Back on the rear, we can fasten our weather stripping back around the B-pillar. Now we can pop our rear sill plate back into place. Now we can move on to reinstalling our door panel. Before that though, we're gonna wanna re-secure our door liner. So we're gonna take our handle cable, poke it through the hole on the door liner, and we'll bring that back into place. Just be sure that the holes on the door liner line up with these holes for the bolts on the door panel. Now we can move on to reinstalling our speaker. So first, grab the electrical connector, clip that back into place and re-engage that red tab. Then the little clip here, you can push that back into that hole. Now we'll latch the bottom of the speaker in and clip the top back. And we can refasten our 7mm bolt there. Now with our door panel, we can first plug our electrical connector back in. Make sure to re-engage the white tab on the connector. Now we can take our fastener on the harness here and push that back into the hole on the panel. Now for the handle cable, first we're going to need to engage the ball on the handle. Then we're going to pull the cable out, guide it through the slit there, and then we can re-engage this tab there. Now with the panel held up, we can take our lock rod here, and then we're gonna fish that back into the hole on the panel. With the lock rod in place, we're gonna engage this top part of the panel with the weather seal. Then once that clips in, we can start re-engaging the trim clips around the edge of the panel. Starting at the top here, we'll refasten the 7mm just behind the handle, and we can pop the trim cover back in. Now we're gonna refasten the two just beneath the grab handle here. Now we can pop our trim panel back on, so we're gonna latch this end in first and then work our way to the front.
Don't forget the 1.7mm bolt at the bottom of the door panel. Then with that complete, you can repeat all the same steps on the passenger side. Once complete, go ahead and reconnect your negative battery terminal. For the optimal use of the passive entry handles, we recommend making the following changes in your vehicle's infotainment system.
So we're just gonna switch the ignition to accessory. Then on the dash here, we're gonna come over to settings, make sure that we have the vehicle tab selected. Then we're gonna come down to remote lock, unlock, and start. And then once we're in here, we're gonna scroll down to passive door unlock. Instead of driver door only, we're gonna wanna select all doors, just like so. All right guys, that's gonna wrap it up for this install. As you can see, these handles really brought back some convenience to this truck. Now we can use passive entry from the rear door as well. If you wanna check out other accessories and products, be sure to head on over to boostauto.com. That said, we will catch you guys in the next one.
The products shown in this video and so much more can be purchased on our website at boostauto.com. We're proud to offer a wide variety of products, parts, and accessories for your truck or SUV that will take your build to the next level. To watch videos like this one and to find out about our newest innovative products for your vehicle, be sure to subscribe to our YouTube channel. That's all for now. We'll catch you in the next one.